you know that none of us would probably understand anything. So the Gen Alpha language had to be deciphered by this professor, and then he had to put little captions and subtitles there in order for all of us to understand what was going on. So it's just an example to show us that we need a shared language to talk. And sometimes it's possible that that it's possible that we can misunderstand what is being shared by the other person. All right? It's quite possible that we may not know what exactly the other person means, the language, the words that they use, the phrases that they use. There can be a lot of miscommunication over all these things. For instance, there was a book that Beulah Wood had brought out once, and it's called How Many Chapatis Do You Want? Okay. And that was to highlight the confusion that happened when a wife used these words to her husband. She just said, how many chapatis do you want? How many should I make for you? And he said, why are you asking me this? Just make lots of chapatis. So in the sense that he thought that she was trying to limit him, okay, in the way she was asking him, how many chapatis do you want? Whereas she just wanted to know how many to make. It was not an issue. It was just the way that she used the language. But he saw it as an insult that she's trying to limit what he's going to eat or whatever. So this became a fight between them. Okay, so a language and the way it is used is very important. For instance, in many South Indian languages and in North Indian languages as well, there are specific words which are used for respect, right? So in Malayalam, for instance, we'll say ningal for respect. In Hindi, we would say aap. Now, if somebody says tum, it can be seen as very disrespectful. It can be seen as somebody running the other person down or whatever. So that can create a problem. I remember there was this huge problem once in Parliament when I think it was who was it? Jairam Ramesh Satish, who used the word humongous. Somebody used the word humongous in Parliament. And a whole lot of MPs got very upset saying that the Prime Minister is being insulted by this Congress guy using the word humongous. He's insulting. Huh? It was Jaipal Reddy. Okay, my husband's correcting me for that. Jaipal Reddy used it. So somebody had, then Renuka Chakravarti had to explain that no, humongous only means large. It doesn't mean that it's not an insult to the Prime Minister. He was just saying that there is a humongous fraud on the nation. Does not mean that it is insulting the Prime Minister. It is merely saying that a huge fraud has been committed. It's not about insulting the Prime Minister. So she's saying humongous means large. For instance, I am humongous, he is humongous. Okay, so that word became a big miscommunication, a problem of miscommunication over there. Similarly, there are lots of these words. There are lots of memes and lots of stuff which we can miscommunicate. We need a shared language. Languages are the way through which we communicate, and we need to be very clear in what we are saying. So the language needs to be understood. Now, many of us like to talk about this concept called love languages, right? And we need to again have a common shared love language for us to understand that the other person is showing love to us. For instance, some people show love by doing things for the other person. Some people show love by spending time with another person. Some people show love by giving gifts or by touching or by speaking some certain words or being spontaneous or, these are things that people express to show their love. The problem is if you speak one language and your friend or your spouse speaks another love language, because there is no shared love language, there might be a miscommunication. A spouse may be trying to show their love for you by washing the vessels or working hard for you or keeping a clean house for you. That may be their love language. You may find your love language being something about sharing time. So if the other person is in the kitchen or in the office all the time working hard for the family, you may not see it as love. You may see it as, oh, this person doesn't love me because they're not spending time with me. So you can see that a shared language can communicate or miscommunicate in certain ways. Okay, so we need to remember this. Okay, now another thing that we need to have a clear and good communication is less interference. Now, interference can happen in various ways, okay? And in our crowded Indian homes where there are so many members, there are grandparents and parents and aunts and uncles coming in and cousins and helpers and so many people, that sometimes the communication can become faulty, right? And sometimes people are in the kitchen cooking, sometimes they are doing something, and there is so much of expectation all the time. That can be the interference. Sometimes friends can be the interference, and friends can range from those who are demanding and needy to those who are actually in trouble and need a lot of our time, and that can interfere with communication with your spouse or other members of your family. Nowadays, of course, social media can be a big distraction. So you see this guy on the phone, it's not necessarily always the guy, the girl may be on the phone all the time, okay? That may create a distance and a lack of communication. Work itself, okay, can be so difficult these days for all of us. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of stress, it takes a lot of travel time, and all these things can interfere with our communication. And of course, just the whole stress of living can make many people retreat into games and movies to distract themselves. And that can be an interference for good communication. Okay. But then we must remember that if we want to be united with our families, if we want to have good relationships with our children, if we want to relate well to our parents or our friends or whatever, we have to set apart time to share one's thoughts, one's feelings, one's hopes. Okay. We need to make this sharing part of our life. If you have a practice of family prayer, make that time a time of communication. Ask for what we should pray about, ask for needs which are there or particular concerns, all right? And particularly children, young people and older children, you can honor your parents by sharing time with them, spending time with them and communicating with them. That is what parents would probably like more than anything else, that the communication. In-laws, it refers to the same thing would happen with in-laws. Your in-laws would probably value your friendship and your communication more than anything else that you may do for them. All right. So some practical suggestions on good communication. Choose your time and occasion with care. Listen. Use I feel words rather than, accusatory you always words. Communication should be continuous. Speak with respect and love and a willingness to adjust and compromise. Settle each day's problems that day itself if possible. Be honest, but avoid hurting words. Never use hurting words with anybody. Use respectful words. Listen to what people say. Listen to what the other person is communicating. Never threaten to break up a relationship or divorce or leaving. That's going to hurt your communication. Do not bring up the past. Ask forgiveness often. Grant forgiveness often. Avoid personal insults. Keep off each other's families. Listen again. I put listen 3 or 4 times, you'd notice. Give it a break if things reach a stalemate. Take a step back, pray for wisdom, and remember that sharing one's emotions brings great closeness, so reserve it for only a few people, including your spouse. Okay, now let's go to, yes, just one more thing to add, that remember that every relationship for good communication requires generous doses of forgiveness, because otherwise you're going to have resentment which clouds your whole thinking. And that resentment can affect your communication. It can make you either angry or withdrawn or a little sullen or a little, holding a grudge. It can cause an explosion sometimes, okay? So unless there is generous doses of forgiveness, communication is not going to be very good, because as humans, we tend to accumulate these things, okay? Just like you need a bath every day, right? We have to wash off the dirt every day. We need to forgive each other very often, because otherwise these things accumulate. Okay, now we're going to go to some unhealthy patterns of communication, all right? This is what we need to focus on now. Sometimes people, one person or the other in the communicative process may talk excessively, right? So in the Jab We Met scenario, the Kareena Kapoor character was talking too much, isn't it? And that can imply that you're not listening, and you can be very self-centered, self-focused, continuous talking. Sometimes it may be very inappropriate. For instance, in that particular scenario where the Kareena Kapoor character was talking to the Kapoor character, it was actually pretty inappropriate. And in a real life situation, it would probably not work out the way it worked out in the movie, all right? It would probably be quite jarring and not helpful at all. Uh, Oversharing can happen if one person is talking all the time. You may sort of share all your emotional issues and all that. And sometimes we see this in, if parents sometimes make their child or elder child their confidant, they may sort of talk all the time and overshare in very inappropriate ways. So this is something that we need to watch out for. The other side is a defensiveness and a reticence to talk, right? There may be a refusal to engage. There may be a sort of feeling that I'm not going to get into this. You talk, I'm not going to open up. So the person is putting some walls down and they don't want to cross that wall. They don't want to engage for whatever reason. There may be some past history. There may be some memories of some miscommunication. There may be some unresolved issues there that last time you said like this, when I talked, you misunderstood and became a big fight or whatever it is. Sometimes you may evade the issue. You may not want to address the actual accusation or the actual issue, and you may just kind of not want to talk about it, evade the issue, deflect it to something else. So this kind of defensiveness, this also can be a very unhealthy pattern. Sometimes we might see that particularly parents or an older friend or a cousin or sometimes a husband or more commonly a husband, but sometimes many times it can be a wife also, might show a sort of domination over the conversation, dominating the conversation, having a sort of sense of superiority, laying down the law, maybe being very patronizing to the others. And I'll tell you what to do, that sort of thing. You don't know anything. I'll tell you what to do. That showing a little bit of contempt for the other's opinion. Oh, I don't want to hear what you're saying. No, you don't know anything. Just listen to what I'm saying. I'll tell you what to do. So this kind of domination or superiority, laying down the law, this can happen. And this is not a healthy, it's not a mutual communication. It's just a one-way sort of monologue which is happening over there, which is obviously not a very good form of communication. Sometimes some people in communication can become very aggressive, right? They may be verbally very loud. The volume may go up. They may scream. They may use abusive words. They may become rude. They may say something about the other person's character or the other person's family or the other person's behavior or recall something that they did, throw something in their face, taunt them, things like that. This kind of aggressive verbal behavior, that's obviously a very unhealthy form of communication. Now, there is another form of aggression, which is passive aggression, where you might not be screaming, you might not be shouting, you may not be obviously abusive or rude, but you can not reply. So if the other person is saying something which you don't agree with, you just sit back, maybe fold your hands, maybe pretend that you've not heard, maybe just roll your eyes a little bit or make a face or just make some gesture. This kind of passive aggression, this is also a very unhealthy form. And I remember one case where a daughter-in-law was in the kitchen with her mother-in-law and the servant, okay? And I remember that the mother-in-law came in and said something, and she said, I want it done this way, and you have to do it this way, something. She was saying a whole lot of stuff. Maybe she was being a little dominating, maybe she was laying down the law, whatever. But the daughter-in-law responded by making this kind of gesture and looking at the servant and doing this, sort of rolling her eyes, making a gesture with her hands to show that, oh, what is she saying, sort of thing. It was silent. There was nothing said. But the mother-in-law caught the gesture and the rolling of eyes, and she totally lost it. Okay, and this caused a complete breakdown of the relationship within the family. Literally, the husband and the wife were estranged from each other, and the mother-in-law and father-in-law were very upset with the wife. This continued for years. So passive aggression can be quite harmful in itself. Sometimes people can blame the other person for your own fault, right? Like suppose you are suppose you have a spouse who's cheating, right? A spouse who is calling somebody else, maybe not physically cheating, but emotionally dependent on somebody else, talking to them all the time, spending long hours on the phone or something like that. Okay, some kind of maybe these things do happen. Now, if the spouse challenges them, some of them have responded by saying, no, you are the one who's always so suspicious. Don't you know that in modern societies, men and women talk, and it doesn't mean anything. And why are you so suspicious? What is wrong with you? You seem to have a problem. You seem to be very jealous. You seem to be very insecure. So you're sort of blaming the other person when you yourself were the one who was actually cheating. Okay, so this kind of shifting the blame, gaslighting, it's called, this can happen. That's also a very unhealthy pattern, because obviously it's not facing the actual issue, which is, were you cheating? Okay, were you doing that? Now, sometimes people can try to win the argument at any cost. That becomes a very unhealthy form of communication, because you go on arguing, go on saying something, going on refuting the other, or going on as saying that, no, this is what I meant, that's not what you meant. Okay, I'll give you one more proof, or whatever. Trying to win the argument at all costs, that can be a very unhealthy form of communication. All right. Sometimes you may want an immediate fixing of issues. Okay, so this can happen with young couples, for instance. They may want the problem sorted now. I want the problem sorted now. So if I want the problem sorted now, even if my husband is sleeping, I have to shake him and wake him up and say, no, 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 we have to discuss this right now, and we have to fix this problem. We cannot let this problem continue. So this immediate fixing, this immediate desire to work it out at any cost right now, that can result in a lot of flare up of the problem, an escalation of resentment and stuff like that. So obviously this is not a very healthy problem. Of course, you should try to fix things, but wanting this immediate fixing of everything is sometimes it can result in backfiring, and it may not solve the issue at all. Sometimes people bring up old and unresolved issues. And sometimes you have people who say that, during our wedding, your aunt said this to my aunt, or during the wedding, you did not send a car for my parents, or whatever. You get what I mean? Some old unresolved issues can be brought up, and that can become a sort of trigger for things, that can become the focus, and that can become a total distraction from the actual issue at hand. Sometimes no, friends, anybody can refer to the other person's weak spots or memories. Okay, now everybody has something in their life which they're not comfortable about. For instance, you may have failed in some subject, or you may have had some kind of a tragedy in your family, or something which you're very sensitive about, some event which happened which you are ashamed about. Everybody has certain things, right? You may be weak in maths, or whatever it is, something. So if you, in order to win your argument, or to bolster your argument, or to keep the other person down, you may refer to the other person's weak spot. Or you could just say that, I know what you did. You don't even know, can't even pass maths. What's the use of you? Or you might say that, I know what you did. I know that you had that engagement and that broke up. So what about you? I mean, you're not such a great person. No, that person didn't want to marry you. So what do you think about yourself, or whatever? So you know what I mean? You refer to the other person's weak spots. And this can be a sort of tactic in trying to win the argument, or try to prove that you are superior, or whatever. This can be a very unhelpful thing in communication. Bringing up family members and issues, this is very dangerous and something which really should not be done. But this can happen. So this can happen again between friends also. They might say that, oh, your sister's like this, or your brother's like this, or your parents, I don't want to come anywhere near your parents. They are like very dangerous people, or something like that. And between spouses and in the family, this can be really sensitive issues. So you might say that your dad is like this, or your mom is always after me, or yeah. So this taunting of each other's family members or family issues, that your family doesn't have any money, your house is so terrible. I didn't know, if I'd known that I was getting married to someone with such an awful house, I would never have come. So this kind of thing can be a very poor tactic in communication. Obviously, lying and deceiving is a big no-no, but it happens pretty often. And actually, frankly, lying, telling untruths, deceiving in some way or the other, this is not a good method of communication. Now, an interesting thing is taking offense easily. We talked about being rude and giving offense, but what about taking offense? That is another side, isn't it? That sometimes it is possible for us to be very sensitive and take offense where none was intended. right? So even like I said, that example of the chapatis, right? If someone asks you how many chapatis do you want, to take that as something offensive and say that why are you trying to restrict how much I eat? You're always doing this or that. I mean, you just make a lot of chapatis. Why should I tell you now only how many chapatis I will eat? So taking offense easily, that can derail communication. Okay, so this is also something to watch out for. And then finally, giving up and withdrawing. So just sort of giving up on the whole relationship or withdrawing, perhaps not in the relationship, continuing in the relationship, but withdrawing so that there is not much communication. And it's pretty shocking actually how many families have this, that people actually go about their lives without communicating because they have given up on communication. They don't want to communicate anymore. They feel that nothing is going to change, and this kind of pattern also sets in. Okay, so that's something that we need to talk about. Okay, now I'm going to ask Abhijit to play the second clip, and I want you to watch this carefully. And out of the things that I showed you, I'll just put this up again once more. Just have a look at it. And I want you to identify some of these patterns, all right? I'll just run through them again. Identify some of these patterns in the clip that I'm going to show you. Giving up and withdrawing, taking offense easily, lying and deceiving, bringing up family members and issues, referring to the other's weak spots and memories, bringing up old unresolved issues, wanting immediate fixing of issues. Okay. Sorry.
Shall I play it?
1 minute. I'll just run to the other side.
Yeah.
Excessive talking by one person without listening, defensiveness, refusal to engage, domination, superiority, laying down the law, being patronizing or showing contempt for the other, being aggressive, screaming, shouting, being rude, passive aggression, not replying, rolling eyes, etc., challenging or blaming the other for one's faults, and trying to win the argument at all costs. Okay, these are some 10, 12 examples of unhealthy patterns. Now watch this clip. It's a political clip, but we're not looking at it from the political point of view, okay? We're looking at it from the communication point of view, all right? So look at all the characters who are talking and try to figure out what are the communicative errors that they are making, all right? Yeah. Abhijit, go.